Hi, I'm Mark Chichizola, and this is balatro. The whole point of balatro is you use a deck and certain card abilities to gain a score to beat each round, and eventually you have to beat 8 sets of 3 rounds to beat the final boss. And once you've done that, you won the game once. You have to do that 8 times per deck ability, and there's about 13 decks you have to go through, which is a lot. Seems like a long process, but it's surprisingly really fun. Um, we're gonna start with the root word of Balatro, the name of the game. It's actually Latin, and the word means jester or buffoon. The reason why it's called Balatro is because the main point of the game is this gain score based off certain jokers you have, or buffoons, which are basically the card abilities that you will gain throughout the game by accessing shops after beating rounds, which you could gain money from. And this isn't the first. Every game doesn't immediately get their title just like that. This one actually had like 13 different ones, such as Joker Poker, Rogue Poker, Poker Hold'em, just a bunch of names they had in a list, and this one stuck out the most just because it signified the game the most. Now, the genre of this game is indie, which is mostly small creators or groups that make games. Some of them hit big, some of them don't. He did not expect this one to hit big, but it did. Thankful for it. Um, it's also a strategy game because there's a lot of strategy involved. You have to plan ahead, make the right call. You have to think about everything you play, or else you could lose and potentially just start over. But you can still play it casually, which is the third part of the genre section, is it's a casual game. Anyone can play it, anyone can pick it up. All you have to do is learn what each card does, and you just spend some time trying to learn the game, and then after that, it's pretty smooth sailing, honestly. Like, I mean, you'll still have your difficulties and your challenges, but it's easy to get through once you figure out what everything does. Easy for a casual player to pick up. Now, the creator, Local Thunk, is what he goes by online because he will not give up his identity. Not like I'm trying to force it out of him, of course. I promise. So yeah, he decides to stay anonymous. He does, however, we do, however, know that he is from Saka, Sak, Saskatchewan, Canada. I cannot pronounce that for the life of me. And he actually used to work in IT, and that's actually what got him to start doing this. He created the entire game by himself, from top to bottom, from scratch. He did get ideas from other people, but the audio, the graphics, the designs, the music, the gameplay, the features, every single detail about it was created just by him, which is a lot. It's a small game, but there is a lot in the game, which makes doing that all by himself a big project, which I believe it took him 3 years. He started working on it about 2021. Yeah, it took him a long time, and he started from the IT job. He Basically what happened was he was storing up vacation time from working all the time, and he couldn't bring it into the next year. So he took a week or two off at the end of the year, and since he didn't really know what to do with this vacation time, he used it for his hobby, which was creating games. And he decided to start working on this one, Balatro. And when he made this game, he wasn't even intending to release it. And when he did release it, he didn't intend for it to blow up. He thought it would do terrible, but his friends liked it, so they insisted, so he decided to do it anyways. He didn't ma he doesn't do this for money, which is a reason why he regrets that it blew up, because now it's gonna be a little harder for him to create small games that he can just sit and enjoy by himself without expectations of the other games being improved. Um, there was moments he got burnt out, which delayed the inevitable release of the game, but he eventually got back on track, which is why it finally got released in February of 2024. Now, my personal reasons for enjoying the game. Their challenges, possibilities, and the impact that I believe it had on me personally. I have put hundreds of hours in the game in the past year. No, I'm not an addict. I can quit whenever I want, I promise. I just really enjoy it. So I really like the challenges. There's the difficult antes, which every 3 rounds there's a new boss, and then after you beat the boss, you go into the next ante, which basically makes all your scoring a lot harder to achieve because they're a lot higher. There's 13 different decks, which means 13 different deck abilities, which means 13 different possibilities of ways you can play. There's also 30 boss blinds, so every 3 rounds there's the boss, and there's 20 different options. Two of the boss blinds are from small blind, big blind, which is the first and second round of your ante. There's 30 different boss blinds total. They each have a unique ability. Besides two of them, they share the same, but just a lot harder than the smaller version. And there's also the challenge deck, which the whole point of the challenge deck is basically just throw in random attributes of different game modes or whatnot, like having a permanent card that you cannot get rid of, which for some people that sucks. Um, my second reason is possibilities. There is infinite combos of cards, decks, playstyles, and difficulties. Each deck, there's 13 of them, has 8 difficulties each, which means you have to beat the game 8 times 13 times. I'm not going to do that math right now, which is a lot of times. So there's always something for you to do. And even if you finish all those, you still have 24 challenge decks, which, although do not have multiple difficulties, are a whole difficulty in themselves. There's also hitting an inf, which means not a number infinite. You achieve this by getting a score so high that the game can't process it anymore. It's usually past, no, it's always past E308, I believe, is when you finally hit an int, which is 1 times 10 to the 308 power, which is really big. I haven't personally achieved it because I don't shoot for it, but it's a really hard achievement. When you do, it is very satisfying. It takes hours though, which is the reason why I don't personally go for it. Now, the impact the game's had on me would be critical thinking. This game makes you think hard if you really try to win and play consistently. It also makes you plan for the future. There's a lot of future planning since there's 8 ANSIs you have to beat. There's 8 different sections of planning that you have to go through. 'Cause if you're in Ante 1, you have to plan for money so you have enough money in the future to go into Ante 2, 3, 4, or 5 so you can find the right jokers to deck fix for the next 3 antes to hopefully get enough to ante 8 and beat it. Now, sometimes it's just simple, you win, like just on accident. It's happened all the time to me personally, but it's still good to have that future planning, and it's helps me plan in the future in my real life as well, because it's helped me realize, hey, I need to do this in order for this to happen, which is really useful. It's also helped me realize I need to take more risk, because I just play everything safe in most games, or even in real life, like, oh, I might get hurt by doing this, but if I do it, I could benefit from it. And this game, there's a lot of risk taking because if you do the wrong thing, then, well, you lose because there's a lot of probability because it is a gambling game, just not like a addictive kind of gambling game, just a really satisfying one. And then, of course, with risk taking, future planning, critical thinking, there's decision making, which basically is the whole game is you decide on each factor and what you're going to do, what you're going to take, how you're going to spend your money, what you're going to play. And final thing that goes into is judgment, because you have to make the right calls to whatever you think is the most correct thing to do in order to win. And this has affected me personally because I implement these kinds of things I do, this process that you go through in the game when critically thinking through all these steps in my real life, which helps me get through challenges a lot more easier. Surprisingly, it's helped me in math. This game has a lot of math. If you try really, really hard, if you play casually, then you don't have to worry about too much math. Yeah, I really like the game. It's really fun. It's why I love playing it and why I think it's one of the best games that's ever came out, personally. Yeah, it's pretty satisfying. Thank you for listening. Mark Chichizola,